My name is Zoe. I am 17 years old. I live in a small town called Newport. I go to school in the morning. In the evening, I go to the theater. I like to act in plays. I like to stand on the stage. I feel strong when I act. I feel happy too. We have a small group. It is called the Newport Players. We do 6 plays every year. I am in many of them. Some plays are fun, some are sad, but I love all of them. I feel free when I act. I feel like someone new. Last week we did a big play. It was called Romeo and Juliet. It is a love story. Many people know this play. I did not play Juliet. I played her mother. It was not a big role, but I liked it. I wore a long dress. I used a soft voice. I looked like a mother. I worked very hard for this part. I read my lines again and again. I stood tall on the stage. I smiled at the girl who played Juliet. I looked at her like a real mother. I wanted people to believe me. I wanted them to feel the story. I wanted them to say, "Yes, she is good." The play was on Thursday night. The small theater was full. People came with their friends. Some came with family. The lights went out. The show began. I felt a little scared, but I took a deep breath. I smiled and started my part. I remembered every word. When the play ended, people clapped. I felt so good. I walked home with my friend Annie. She said, "You did very well." I smiled. "Thank you," I said. I hope other people liked it too. The next day, Annie called me. She said, "Zoe, the newspaper is out." She meant the Newport Weekly News. "There is a review of the play," she said. "Do you want to see it?" I said yes. I was excited. I went to meet Annie at the cafe. We sat near the window. She had the paper in her hand. She opened it to the page. "Look," she said. "Here it is." I looked at the page. I saw a picture of the play. Then I saw the words. It said, "Zoe Baker plays Juliet's mother. She has a pretty face. She speaks her words well. But she is a young girl in an older woman's dress. And we all know it. She cannot make us believe anything else." I did not move. I looked at the page again. My face felt hot. My hands felt cold. My heart was fast. I did not smile. He said, "I have a pretty face," I said. "That's it?" Annie looked at me. "He is a student," she said. "He writes for the paper sometimes. His aunt is the editor. His name is Mike Morrison." "Mike Morrison," I said. "I don't know him, and he doesn't know me," Annie said. "Don't worry about it. You did well." But I did not feel okay. I went home and sat on my bed. I read the review again. She is a young girl in an older woman's dress. He did not see my acting. He only saw my face. He only saw my age. I looked in the mirror. I was a young girl. That was true. But I worked hard. I read every line. I used the right voice. I wore the right clothes. I did all I could. He did not say that. He did not care. I closed my eyes. I tried not to cry, but the words stayed in my head. That night I could not sleep. I thought about the play. I thought about Mike Morrison. I thought about the words. She has a pretty face. Was that all I was? On Tuesday, I met Annie again. We sat at the same cafe. We talked about school. Then a boy came in. He sat at a table near us. He had short brown hair. He had a pen in his hand. "Who is that?" I asked. Annie looked. She smiled. "That is Mike." "Mike Morrison?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "That's him." I looked at him. He looked like a normal boy. He looked calm. He was not tall. He had a soft smile. I felt something in my chest. I felt heat in my face. "That's the boy who wrote the review?" I asked. "Yes," Annie said. I looked at him again. I wanted to walk to his table. I wanted to say, "You are wrong," but I did not move. Annie looked at me. "Are you okay?" she asked. I said, "No. I want to talk to him, but I also want to do something else." "What do you mean?" Annie asked. "I have an idea," I said. "Does he come here often?" "Yes," Annie said. "He comes here every Tuesday and Thursday." I smiled. "Good. Why is that good?" Annie asked. "Because I want to act again," I said. Annie looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I will not tell you now," I said. "But I have a plan." That night, I sat in my room. I did not cry. I thought hard. I looked in my closet. I took out a wig. It was black. I had glasses too. I put them on. I looked in the mirror. "Can he see it as me?" I asked myself. The next day, I saw Mike again. I stayed far away. I watched him walk. I watched how he sat. I watched how he looked at people. I took notes in my mind. I was going to act again. But this time, it was not on stage. This time, I was going to act in real life. I was going to play a new role. I was not Zoe. I was someone else. I wanted to show him I can be someone new. I wanted to prove something. He said I was just a young girl. But I was more than that. I was strong. I could change. I could be anything. He did not believe me before, but he will believe me now. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. I did not cry about the review anymore, but I could not forget it. I wanted to show him I was not just a girl in a dress. I wanted to prove that I could act, not on stage, but in real life. I told Annie my plan. At first, she did not understand. Then she laughed. But I was not joking. I went to my closet and took out a black wig. It was short and neat. I also found big glasses. When I wore them, I looked different. I did not look like myself. My eyes looked smaller. My hair looked dark. I put on a long gray coat and flat shoes. I looked like a grown woman, not a student. I was not Zoe anymore. I was someone else now. My name was Kate Lawson. Kate was smart. Kate was strong. Kate worked for a magazine. I made up the name of the magazine, too. It was called Yes. It sounded like a real one. People read it in waiting rooms and buses. I took one old magazine from home and used it for the trick. I walked into the cafe on Thursday. Mike was there, just like Annie said. He sat at a small table with coffee and a book. He looked calm. He did not know me. Not like this. I walked to his table and asked if he was Mike Morrison. He looked up and said yes. I smiled and asked if I could sit with him. He said okay. My heart was fast, but I spoke slow and clear. I told him my name was Kate Lawson. I said I worked for Yes magazine. I said I read his review in the Newport Weekly, and I liked how he wrote. His face looked proud, but he tried to hide it. Then I said I wanted him to do something for the magazine. I told him it was a big chance. He asked what it was. I said I wanted him to do an interview. The person he had to talk to was Todd Marone. His face changed when he heard the name. He said, "Todd Marone never speaks to anyone. He hates magazines." I smiled and said, "That is why this is special. If you get him to talk, you will be the first." Mike looked unsure. He said, "I want to write plays, not interviews." I looked him in the eye and said, "Then talk to him. Ask about writing. He may help you." Mike looked at the magazine on the table. He asked if I was serious. I said yes. He said, okay. I told him to go the next morning. I said, "Don't tell him about the magazine at first. Just talk." Mike smiled. "All right," he said. "I'll do it." I smiled too, but my smile was different. I was not happy. I was ready. The next morning, I left home early. I followed Mike to Todd Marin's house. He lived near the woods in a quiet street. His house was big, with dark trees and high walls. I stood behind a bush. I wore the wig and glasses again. I wanted to see what would happen. Mike stood at the door for a while. When the door opened, I saw Todd. He was tall and wore black clothes. Mike spoke fast. I could not hear them, but I watched. After a minute, Todd moved to the side. Mike walked in. The door closed. I stayed behind the bush. I waited. I thought it would be 10 minutes. Maybe 20. I thought Mike would come out soon, and Todd would be angry. I thought Mike would be red in the face. I wanted to see that. But time passed. 1 hour went by, then more. The house was still quiet. No one came out. I sat on the cold ground. My feet were cold. My coat was too thin. Still, I waited. After some time, the door opened. Mike came out. Todd was with him. They were smiling. They shook hands. Todd looked happy. Mike looked proud. I stood up slowly. I could not believe it. I stepped out from behind the bush. Mike saw me. His face changed. He stopped walking. I walked to him and took off the glasses. Then I took off the wig. His mouth opened a little. "You?" he said. I said yes. I told him my real name. "I'm Zoe," I said. "I just wanted to show you something." He looked down for a second. Then he laughed. "You tricked me," he said. "You were good." I said, "I had to act. I had to prove that I can do more than stand in a dress. I can play any part." Mike said, "You are a good actress. You really are." He told me Todd liked his idea for a play. Todd wanted to read more. I said, "That's great." But inside, I still felt a little fire. I did not act to help him. I acted to show him. But now, maybe both things happened. He saw my skill, and he got something good too. Mike said, "Thank you. You helped me." I said nothing. I smiled. He asked, "Can I buy you a coffee?" I said yes. "Only if I can wear my real hair," I said. He laughed again. "Deal," he said. We walked back to the cafe together. My hands were still cold, but I felt warm inside. Not because he smiled at me, not because he liked my acting, but because I knew I could do something hard. I made a plan. I did not give up. I made him see me as I really was. The next day felt strange. I woke up and looked in the mirror. My face was my own again. No wig. No glasses. Just me. But something had changed. I did not feel small anymore. I did not feel like just a girl in a dress. I felt strong. I met Annie at the cafe. She was already there. She had 2 cups of coffee on the table. I sat down and smiled. She looked at me and said, "So? How did it go?" I told her everything. I told her about the wig. I told her about the magazine story. I told her how Mike believed it all. I told her how he spoke to Todd Marin. She laughed and covered her mouth. "You really did that?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "and it worked." Annie looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "You are amazing." I smiled again. But deep inside, I still felt something. Not pain, not anger, just a little question. Why did his words hurt me so much? Why did I care? I said I wanted to prove him wrong. And I did. He believed me. He said I was a good actress. But now, I wanted to know something else. I wanted to know if he was honest. The next week, the new newspaper came out. I saw it on Friday morning. I walked to the corner shop. I bought a copy and sat on a bench. I turned the pages slowly. My hands shook a little. I found the review. It was not about a play this time. It was about a visit to a writer's house. The title was simple, A Morning with Todd Marone. The words were soft and kind. Mike wrote about his talk with the famous writer. He said Todd helped him. He said Todd listened to his ideas. Then I saw a short line near the end. It said, "Thanks to a brave young woman, I had this chance. She played a part so well, I believed every word. She is not just a pretty face. She is a real actress." I read that line twice. Then I closed the paper. My eyes felt warm. I looked at the trees around me. The wind was soft. I felt calm. Maybe I didn't need more than that. Maybe those words were enough. Later that day, Mike sent me a message. He asked if I wanted to meet. I said yes. We met in the park. The sun was out. It was not cold anymore. We walked slowly, without a plan. He talked about his play. He said it was about two young people who dream. He said Todd gave him ideas to make it better. I listened. I told him about my next play. I said I had a small role again, but I still wanted to do it well. He smiled and said, "I will come see it. And this time, I will write the truth." I looked at him and said, "You better." We both laughed. That evening, I sat at home and thought about the last 2 weeks. So many things had changed. I had felt angry, sad, and brave. I had made a plan. I had acted outside the stage. And now, I felt new. I remembered the girl who read the review. The girl who felt cold and small. She was still me, but she was also gone. I had learned something. I had learned that I can show who I am. I can be more than how I look. I can be more than my age. 2 weeks later, we had a new play at the theater. It was a funny one. I had 5 lines. That was all. But I said each one with heart. I looked at the crowd. I smiled. I saw Mike in the 3rd row. He was watching. And this time, he saw more than my face. After the play, he waited for me outside. He gave me a small paper. "Another review?" I asked. He said, "No. Just a note. For you." I read it when I got home. It said, "Every role you play is full of truth. You speak with heart. You act with soul. Never stop." I kept the note. I folded it and put it in my drawer. I read it again some days. Not because I needed praise, but because I liked the change. Mike and I did not become best friends. We talked sometimes. We shared coffee. We shared ideas. We laughed. But we were not a couple. We were just 2 young people who both wanted to be more. He wanted to write. I wanted to act. And we both learned that the world sees your face first, but not your whole self, not your voice, not your heart. You have to show them that part. Now, when I walk on stage, I feel calm. I know who I am. I know what I can do. People still call me young. They still say I have a pretty face. That's fine. I just smile, because I know that's not all they'll remember. They will remember my voice, my part, my truth. And sometimes that is enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.